everybody, how's it going? I'm Eden of LightCycleAstrology.com. Today we are doing part 2 of preparing for the upcoming eclipse that is happening in the sign of Aries on April the 8th. In part 1, of course, we took a look at the timing of the eclipse, when it's happening, and we also went into some broad themes that may be coming along with this eclipse. Today, what we want to do, though, is take this eclipse through all 12 rising signs to personalize it for your birth chart. This is going to place the eclipse into a particular house that will give us an indicator of potentially where or what topics the eclipse may be speaking to. So, for instance, if you are an Aries rising, that is making the eclipse take place in your first whole sign house, which may be an indicator of things relating to body, personality, physical things, health, and so on and so forth. So we'll go through all 12 rising signs today and give some delineations for particular house topics that the eclipse may be representing. Also, very important is the fact that at the time that the eclipse comes through, which we'll see here in a moment when we pull up the chart, there is also a Mars-Saturn conjunction happening in the neighboring sign of Pisces. And this is important because Mars is the quote-unquote domicile ruler of the sign of Aries. So Mars is hosting the eclipse, and it's poignant, I guess, that Mars and Saturn coming together. It's like you want to pay attention to that. What is this Mars-Saturn all about that is happening at the same time as an eclipse that Mars is hosting? So we'll get into that today. Before we do, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit notifications so you don't miss any videos. Leave some comments in the comment section. I usually go through on Sundays, I go through a couple of hours just reading comments, especially even ones that come in from old videos. I don't usually have time to respond to that many of them, but I really do appreciate them. And it's the biggest teacher for me about what you guys like to see, what you guys are noticing out there with the things that we talk about, the stories, the experiences. I love to get those, so I appreciate those. Of course, it helps the channel to grow and the algorithm and all of that. But you can always find me at lightcycleastrology.com if you want to connect with me more personally, if you want to find out about readings that I offer there, and how we work with clients and so on and so forth. You can check that out at lightcycleastrology.com. Okay, let's get into it. We'll pull up the real-time clock and we'll take just a quick look at the eclipse in the chart before we jump into horoscopes. So we have the eclipse taking place at 19 degrees of Aries, and this is April the 8th. So this is going to be the following Monday from today. Something just really interesting that I talked about in part 1. Each planet was exalted in a particular sign, and the sun just so happens to be exalted in the sign of Aries. So this is an important eclipse because the sun is the planet getting eclipsed, but it's doing so in the sign of Aries. And it not only is doing so where the sun is exalted in this entire sign, but the ancient astrologers indicated that even within an exalted sign, a planet would have an exalted degree. And for the sun, that is 19 degrees of Aries, interestingly enough. So you got to wonder, wow, this is potentially a more important eclipse for the sun because it's happening where the sun is exalted in the whole sign, but also in particular in this 1 degree that the sun was said to be exalted in. So I really find that, of course, very interesting. But what we were talking about earlier was that Mars and Saturn coming into a conjunction together at the moment that the eclipse is happening. It isn't, it's not perfected exactly at the time of the eclipse, but Mars is really close to Saturn. And just after the eclipse, Mars will make that exact perfected conjunction. And that is indicative of, or gives a clue as to what this eclipse may be speaking about, because Mars is the host of the eclipse. So it's rather like, let's say that you own a house and you have a couple of guests come over, and it's almost like while they're staying at your place, they get married or something like that. So there's a really powerful new beginning that is taking place in your home if you're Mars. And the fact that Mars and Saturn are coming together in the sky at the same time, it adds a level of interpretation to this eclipse, I think. So we're going to interpret the eclipse with a mixture of the Mars-Saturn with the sun and the moon in the neighboring sign of Aries. We're going to mix those two things together as we go through rising sign horoscopes here in a second. But I just wanted to point that out, that is a really important thing that is happening. Also, if we go ahead and put Venus back into the chart, you'll see that Venus has just entered Aries, the sign where the eclipse is taking place in. And so there may be a social or love dimension that is also pertaining to the eclipse, but I just want to keep it a little bit simple or simpler and not have Venus in the chart just for today, just so we can see Mars and Saturn and the sun and the moon. Okay, well, if you want a little bit deeper dive into just the eclipse itself, that's where you would want to watch part 1 if you haven't seen that. But today, we're just going to jump into horoscopes. We'll get right into it here. So we already have Aries on the ascendant. And just if you're new to rising sign horoscopes, because I practice ancient Western traditional astrology, I use whole sign houses, which means that wherever the rising degree is in whatever sign that is in, whether it's the 1st degree of that sign or the 29th degree of that sign, that is going to make that whole sign your whole 1st house. And that, of course, is going to make every preceding sign the another whole sign house. So it makes it very simple. You just have to know what sign is your rising or your ascendant degree falling in, and that will formulate the whole chart where there is a whole house per sign. It makes it really simple that way. So that's how you can sort of figure out, if you're a little bit new to this, like, well, how do I know which one to listen to? Yeah, it's whatever sign your ascendant is in. You just count from that sign, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Every preceding sign will be a new house. So let's jump right into the horoscopes here. If you are in Aries rising, this is a really powerful place to have an eclipse because this is taking place in your 1st house. So ancient astrologers gave us the knowledge that the 1st house was the one area of life that was really personal for our physical bodies and our spiritual, like our soul, our psychology, our identity, our personality. It's almost like a place where, if you think about your life as you playing a character on a stage, it's like, who are you going to be? Are you going to be a person that sacrifices all the time for other people? You're the helpful person. Are you going to be the person that needs to take adventure and risks? You want to live your life by some kind of, you feel like things need to happen. There needs to be action. Things need to be started, and there's only one way to do that, and that's to take that first step. That's a lot like Aries rising, right? Aries rising is the springtime sign where life begins anew. So Aries rising people tend to be people that are really good at starting new things for themselves, whether that's physically, whether that's identity, whether that's having almost like a childlike or innocent kind of personality that is always bringing forth a lot of energy and exuberance, a lot of passion in life, but also a person that is indomitable. This is Aries rising people tend to be people that will meet a challenge face to face, head on. It doesn't shy away from conflicts if need be. So you have to wonder, when there's an eclipse in the 1st house, what about identity? What about character or personal, something very personal to you is almost like receiving new buds of life that are sort of coming in. Is there something that is speaking to something very personal that is just beginning and will flourish and bloom and blossom over the months to come? Now, if you have Mars and Saturn coming together in the 12th, and if that is connecting to it, you get the sense that this may have, it could have a health dimension to it, where there is the need to, like, I'll give you an example. Like, sometimes people have surgery, like they get their hips replaced, or like they have knee surgery or something like that. This is like where you go into surgery because you just, you've hit a brick wall in your mobility or something, and it's painful. And if you just have the surgery and get it over with, and then you recover from that there will be kind of like a new you. This may not be something physical, or it may not be surgery, but I could definitely see something in that realm of possibility where it's like, what needs to go through a process of healing, redemption, recovery, that will help you be a new you on some level, whether that's spiritually, physically. That's where I see kind of the energy for Aries rising happening. The 12th house was the place of hidden things, like hidden enemies, or the ways that you undo yourself, or things like that. So with Mars and Saturn in the 12th house coming together, it could also be something like the need to be yourself, whether that pisses people off or not, and of course the fallout from that could be something like, well, there's animosity now with you and somebody else, or something like that. But this could be the need to be like, I need to step forward as who I am, and maybe that's changing. And if that means something, if that brings some kind of conflict, it's almost like, well, so be it. Sometimes there's the need for that. There's the need to just do that, whether it's going to create tension or issues or not. Of course, the balance is you don't want to die on an anthill, right? What's that saying? Like, this is the hill I'm going to die on. You don't want to die on an anthill. Right. It's sort of like the old adage of, you got to choose your battles wisely. But if you feel like you need to be yourself, there's consideration, there's questions, and I think new growth happening around those kinds of things. So that's what I have if you are Aries rising. Now, if we move the real-time clock forward, actually, you know what? Not by days, but by hours here. There you go, Eden. Okay, this is going to place the eclipse taking place in the house, the 12th house here, which is a place that is a hidden dimension or hidden realm, a place that connected to healing, recovery, sickness, disease, being incarcerated. It sounds negative, but the thing is about the 12th is that it tends to be this area that we seek healing or recovery or a way back to ourselves. And it's fraught with challenges or people that work against us. With Mars and Saturn in the 11th coming into a conjunction, right off the bat, you have to wonder about the need to maybe walk away from certain social connections or groups or associations or something like that. And perhaps the need to develop something new in yourself that may require more time alone, or at least being apart from a particular social network or a group of friends, or something along those lines. Now, of course, you get a strong feeling that there could be changes in social networks, and it could even be changes that don't end well, right? It's like I'm going to leave, and it doesn't end well, but this begins, I think, or is connected to, or happens alongside of, or simultaneous to a process of inner development. Of course, I guess the shadow side is obviously burning a bridge, creating an enemy. So quite simply, you want to, of course, consider the bridges that you need, and all of that. And I'm sure you guys know how to consider that. But for Taurus risings, Taurus rising people are generally pretty knowledgeable about how to handle social situations harmoniously, because they're a Venus-ruled sign. But we do have Aries moving into the 12th house in the sign of Aries as well while the eclipse happens. So you get the sense that it could be a time where it's a little bit easier or a little bit more difficult to see how you step on other people's toes, or what you do for yourself that creates animosity in the lives of other people. And what are the consequences of that? Do you even notice them or see them? This one's has that challenge to it. So you sort of have to do your best to watch out for that. Okay, now let's go ahead and we'll put Gemini on the ascendant. This is going to move the eclipse into the 11th house, a place associated with friends, networks of people, allies, mentors, also hopes and wishes and dreams for the future. And then we have Mars and Saturn coming together in the 10th house and potentially having something to do with that eclipse in the 11th. So it feels as though there are new buds that are forming around the area of life, like the social areas of life that have to do with friends or associates at work or groups, or something like that. But with Mars and Saturn in the 10th, it's almost like a door is shutting in another very public area of life, quitting a job, starting another one, but meeting a new, having all new work colleagues or something like that. Meeting new friends, but somehow not going to the same places that you used to go with other groups of people or something like that. Like how are things changing around where you are visibly noticed in the world? The 10th house is almost like your stage. Like if you were a famous person and you got famous in a particular movie or on a TV series, or you're at the Emmys and you're on that stage. The 10th house is like the stage where the spotlight is on you. It's the most visible place. So there's some brick wall coming that you're running up against in a visible place in the world. And then there are new buds happening around social networks or aspirations for the future. So it has that connection with career and work potentially, but it could just be around social things. So I have to wonder about that. So that's kind of the area that I feel like this is getting at. So I'd be curious too, if you're a Gemini rising, are there new friends coming in, or what's going on with work and things like that for you? If you're a Gemini rising, you can leave those in the comment section. That would be great to see examples. I actually am very close to 2 Gemini risings, but for me, the only thing that comes to mind is there are definitely, it seems like there are new friendships developing with my partner, Kate, but I don't know. So I'm not sure, because eclipses, they're the beginning of something and you don't always know exactly what they pertain to down the road. It's easier to go, oh yeah, that eclipse, it was the beginning of like this whole thing, but I didn't see it at the time. So sometimes eclipses, you don't always know right away what they're indicative of, but it should have something to do with that social dimension of life. It could also be speaking to new aspirations, new goals, or a new ally that comes in. Like you meet somebody and he or they is somebody really important to the particular goal or image of success or something you're aspiring towards, could have something to do with something really beneficial coming along that helps you get where you're going as well, or a person that helps you get where you're going. Okay, let's go ahead now and we'll move forward. We'll put Cancer on the ascendant. If you are a Cancer rising, the eclipse is happening in your 10th whole sign house, a place associated with career, but also reputation, rank, achievement, success. It's sort of the top of the sky where we're at our peak. And when you have a solar eclipse there, it could be about it could be that there are achievements that have been gained, or they're very close to being achieved, and there may be a sense of like, I've done this, but now what? Now I need something new. I need a new direction, or I need a new practice, or but it could be something as simple as like, well, I've been doing yoga for a while now, and I've finally hit this benchmark, but I need to step it up and try to get to the next level, right? Like I need to progress or whatever. It has that sense of like, I've gotten here, and now I need to challenge myself to get to here. With Mars and Saturn in the 9th house, it could also be indicating that there's some higher understanding that's running into a crisis or an ending, or like, for instance, somebody that drops out of university because there's like a job opportunity and they don't end up finishing their master's or something like that, or somebody that graduates and then needs to take that education and actually apply it out in the real world, and that begins the transition of like, okay, I have the master's, but now I need to do something with that knowledge. Now, this could have there could be some conflict or tension around ethics or principles, the sort of guiding ethical principles that we hold. Is that coming into some kind of conflict? Is there a roadblock? Is there something that is really difficult or challenging with other people or within ourselves? And does that affect what we are doing in the world, the actions that we take in the world, or our reputation in the world somehow? Are those two things somehow connected? That is also one way in which we could read this eclipse paired along with the Mars-Saturn conjunction in the 9th house. So that is that's what I think about for Cancer risings, are things along those lines. Okay, now let's go ahead now. We're going to move the real-time clock to place Leo on the ascendant. Now this is going to bring this eclipse into the 9th house, and we are going to synthesize or pair along with the interpretation of that 9th house eclipse, potentially having something to do with Mars and Saturn coming together into a conjunction in the 8th house. This one is interesting. The 9th house has a connection with legal things, like law. The 8th house has a connection with the entanglement of resources with other people. So you have to wonder, is there the need to sort of do something like enter legal counsel or get a lawyer or something like that to for somebody that's maybe going through a separation or a divorce or along those lines? Is there, or are there also connections with inheritance, or with somebody passing but receiving an inheritance through that passing, and then this allows an opportunity to go back to earn a vocation, or get accreditation or travel. I'm not sure about that, because Mars and Saturn in the 8th, both planets are associated with death, but I don't know. I mean, I guess it's possible, but I don't. It feels a little bit more ominous, but That's just me. I'm a sunny Scorpio rising, so I don't always look for the most uplifting or positive way to read this, but I guess my instincts or my intuitive feeling feels like you don't maybe get something from somebody through the eighth house conjunction of Mars and Saturn coming together that allows for travel, but it feels a little bit more like there's an issue with how you're dependent on something or someone or a situation like a job. And there's like this growing sense of, these are the moral principles that I would like to live my life by. And I would like to develop those or stand on those more, or those are really important to me. Maybe I should fight for them. But maybe that means somehow getting out of debt or not being dependent on this person or this job or this situation or paying my taxes. Or could be anything associated with sort of being able to stand on your own because there are like higher ethical values that are important to you. It could be something like that as well. So that is a few things or a few examples I think that you could notice with this one. Okay, let's go ahead now and we'll put Virgo on the ascendant. If you're a Virgo rising, this is placing an eclipse into the 8th house, a place that was associated with the sort of the karmic entanglements of resources with other people or contracts with other people or the sharing of a spouse's resources or being dependent, and also providing for other people, like not just being dependent on somebody, but also having other people be dependent on you. What is changing around that area of either dependence or provisioning? That may have something to do with the Mars-Saturn conjunction in the 7th house, where there maybe is conflict in a relationship or in a marriage, or maybe there's a divorce or something like that. But it feels like it's about partnership and then something new happening, or the buds of a new season beginning with how we're connected with the people around us, or how we're contracted or something like that. It could also be with Mars and Saturn in the 7th. Sometimes you get planets like that indicating that our partner is going through something. So Mars and Saturn in the 7th could represent something happening in the life of a partner. Maybe there's a setback for our spouse, or maybe there is I don't know, something that feels like a brick wall or a challenge, or an obstacle that needs to be overcome. And maybe we are the ones that are sort of shouldering the new responsibility, picking up the slack a little bit, or providing some more finances for the team or something like that in order to carry the whole team through. It has that kind of feeling as well. So, but I think it's likely that it could be more challenging. I think that this is one of the more challenging ones, where there's the need to sort of develop something new around how people are dependent on us, or how we depend on other people. There's the need to sort of change things in that area, and it could be as a consequence of the ending or the conflict that is happening within a relationship. So that is what I have if you are a Virgo rising. Sorry, that one isn't the most uplifting one, but it seems like it's, for me, that's just what my gut is telling me. So if you're a Virgo rising and there's something really a lot more positive happening, I'd love to hear about it, because I don't want to just paint this as just something only negative. But anyway, that's what I have for Virgo. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll move Libra to the ascendant. This is going to place Mars and Saturn coming together into a conjunction in the 6th house. And Mars is the host of that eclipse that is taking place in the 7th house. So it feels as like almost like, is there a new, are there new buds that are beginning to form on the branches of an existing relationship? Is there a new partnership that is beginning to form? You could even see, like, is there competition with someone that is beginning to form? Is there kind of like you in competition with someone else, and there's like a whole theme around this thing beginning to be a thing like that, where there's like a competitive thing. And the Mars and Saturn for me feels like that area of life that you toil. Like, what is the area that requires just straight up toil? It's like, where do you work hard? And it doesn't have to even be physical. It can be something that's mentally toiling as well, of course, right? But it feels like something like the topics of toil and hard work, hard labor, the hard thing needs to get done, or the conflict that needs to be worked out with someone is connected to the new growth within a relationship, or of a new relationship, or of competition, or something along those lines, where it's the work. I'm gonna work hard to beat my opponent, in like a sport or something like that, right? Or we're gonna work hard to get through the ways that we butt heads, but it's going to lead to new growth in our relationship. Or my partner and I were working really hard together to get things done, or something like that. So those are a few things that come to mind. Okay, let's go ahead now and place Scorpio on the ascendant. This is my personal rising sign. And let me just tell you my personal, the personal way that I feel like that this is shaking out. So my son comes home yesterday off of the bus. He's 9. And he gets off the bus, and he has blue dye all over his face. And he has been dealing with bullying on the bus. And he can't seem to get away from these kids on the bus. The bus driver doesn't seem to care, or it doesn't notice it or something. We've gone to the school multiple times. We're in contact with this teacher. We've talked to everybody. But the bullying seems to persist, and the only option really at this point is to sort of take him off the bus. But it was so emotional for me yesterday, especially as a Scorpio rising. You can imagine, if you know anything about Scorpio or Scorpio rising, you'll know right away that like, I have a Libra moon, so I'm pretty amicable most of the time. I'm not the like the caveman Scorpio that just is vengeful, but this really led me into that. This really led me into, like, I'm ready to like track this kid down, find out where he lives, go talk to his parents, and confront them. Very 6th house, right? And I'm pretty sure that's where this is leading to. So I told myself in the shower this morning, you got to go figure out where this kid lives, and see if you can have a conversation with his parents and just communicate. Just let them know, like, I'd really like to figure out how can we resolve this thing. Your child is throwing blue dye all over my kid on the bus. He's coming home. It's really stressful for him. The only choice is for me to take him off the bus, which I don't think is fair. I don't know how they're going to react. I don't know who they are. I don't know if they're going to, just come at me with, it's hard. How do you tell somebody's, how do you tell somebody that their kid is a bully and confront them on that? This for me is that you got the 5th house, Saturn and Mars, my child going through a difficult time. And then the potential for something new to develop, like a new conflict to develop for me. So it doesn't have to be something that lasts forever and ever, right? But it's something that I'm going to have to confront. So for me, that's sort of the example that I would give you. But I would say for Scorpio rising, look for the topics around children potentially going through a difficult time. Or it could be, if it's not children, like if you don't have children in your Scorpio rising, it could be something like, am I indulging in a way that's unhealthy that will lead to sickness, injury, health challenges, or conflict with other people, or something like that, where there's kind of like the need to confront something that comes from pleasure that's overdone, maybe that is not healthy, or something along those lines, like you think of Janis Joplin, who had a similar thing happening with the fifth and the sixth. Not exactly the same thing. There was like Jupiter involved and stuff like this, but Janis Joplin and the example of like just drinking too much, the fifth house, and then having to deal with the health problems of that, or something like that. So doesn't necessarily have to be with health, doesn't necessarily have to be with children, but it's something around pleasure, how we take pleasure, indulge, that potentially is leading to something difficult or something like that. Getting hurt playing sports, having a new injury because you were out, doing jujitsu or something, something like that. Okay, so if you are a Scorpio rising, those are just a few examples. Now let's go ahead and we'll move Sagittarius to the first house and make that the rising sign. And this is going to place the eclipse happening into the fifth house, which is also going to tie in potentially with the Mars-Saturn conjunction in the fourth house. I feel like Sagittarius rising, it's getting at that Mars-Saturn, the brick wall feeling somewhere in the home. There's something in the home. It's like, oh, we're pregnant, but we don't have space in the home. We got to move now because we're expecting another child. There's somebody else that we have to feed. Or the place that we're living, it's not fun. Like we need to move to enjoy our life more, something like that. Or maybe it's something like, we want to have more fun and enjoy life more, but we need to change something in the home, or we'd like to have another child, but it's bringing conflict in the home, or something around those topics. I feel like is maybe coming around. One example that I hope isn't too specific is something like where you get Mars and Saturn. Is there a death in the home that leads to some amount of good fortune? You don't only get inheritance through things like the eighth house. You do see it in the eighth house, but you also, at times, you can see inheritance coming through the fourth house, especially when there's an eclipse in the fifth, because the fifth house was broadly associated with just general good fortune. So is there something new that is fortunate that's coming, that is beginning to materialize, but how does that connect with endings in the home or the family with parents, relatives, ancestry, something like that? There's something hitting a wall, ending, a door closing, death potentially, maybe inheritance or something along those lines. But how does that connect with something that may indicate new growth in the area of general good fortune? That's another way you could maybe see this type of eclipse. But let me know if you are a Sag rising. How do you interpret the Mars-Saturn in the fourth that may have a connection with the eclipse in the fifth? I'd love to hear any stories that you guys are noticing right now. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll place Capricorn on the ascendant. Actually, let me roll the clock the other direction because the moon is about to leave the realm of the eclipse here. Okay, so if you are Capricorn rising, this eclipse is happening in the 4th house, and then we have Mars, Saturn coming together in the 3rd house. An eclipse in the 4th generally speaks to, something changing in the home, buying property, moving, beginning a project, a renovation. It could even having a new child born, or like a new member join the family or something like that. Parents coming to live with you or anything like that. But how, or the brick wall thing, the Mars Saturn brick wall feeling around the everyday environment, what is happening around the everyday environment that feels like it's like a collision of difficulty or stress, or the brick wall, something around the everyday routines, rituals, what we do every day is having challenge, because there's something developing in the home space, or with parents, or with family, or something along those lines, or new properties. So for me, the eclipse is really speaking pretty loudly to those kinds of topics, and I would interpret it something like that. What is happening to the day in, day out routines or rituals? I guess a more esoteric interpretation could be the 3rd house connects to the culture around us, like celebrating different holidays or things like that. And even though we're not really near any holidays, culture, that pervasive, thing around us that we don't always notice, but that we are inevitably, in the middle of, whatever culture we belong to, there might be something at odds with the culture. We might be feeling like there's just something kind of difficult about the culture around us. And maybe there's the need to take independence and live in a new way, or have a new private space, or be on our own, or create a new private space for ourselves somewhere else, away from brothers or sisters or family or culture, or something along those lines, is potentially another way you could read this, I think. Okay, let's move now and place Aquarius on the ascendant. This is going to show us that the eclipse is taking place in the 3rd house. And we are also seeing that there may be potential tie-ins with the Mars-Saturn conjunction in the 2nd house. So you get the sense that where is the change, the new door that's opening, the buds that are sprouting? It's happening in the everyday environment. It's happening in the routines. Are we beginning a new routine? Like, for instance, Mars and Saturn in the 4th, maybe there's a big hit to finances because we have bought something, we've invested in something that is going to bring something new to the everyday routines. Like someone who is like, I really, really want to start this this health regimen for myself. I'm going to get into herbalism, or I'm going to get that really expensive, like my mother-in-law, she has, I don't know what brand this is or anything, but she has one of those treadmills. Is that still what you call them? But it has this screen, and you're hiking all over in the world on all these real life places, and it's almost like this virtual thing. But I'm sure it cost a pretty penny. So is there something tied in with finances being restricted, or taking a hit, or changing somehow in a difficult way? And then something changing about the environment, and having a connection between those two things. I wonder about that if you are an Aquarius rising. But broadly speaking, it feels like there are challenges around finances, or something in the environment is changing, and there's a connection to finances. Maybe the belt has to be tightened or something like that, or you get something new. You decide you're finally going to, pull the trigger on buying a Tesla. And now your commute is like just this really new, beautiful experience, but you also got the car payment now, and there's a big expenditure or something like that. Okay, let's go ahead now, and we'll put Pisces on the ascendant. Lastly, but certainly not least, this is placing the eclipse into the second house of finances and resources, income, expenditures, the cultivation. I like to think of the second house as sort of the plot of land that we plant our seeds into. This place will eventually rise to become the first archon. So the second house in time, as the earth is spinning, is brought up to be the first position, the first house position. So it has that, and because it's below the earth, it has that connection with the soil, right? So what new seeds are being cultivated, whether that is skill development, what new skill development maybe is something that is important right now that is happening. What is happening with obviously job, career, that may be adding new resources, or maybe taking resources away in some way. And then you have the Mars Saturn in the first house, which reminds me of this time when I was a salesman in my 20s. I had this job, and I was okay at it. I made a living, but Brad, right? Brad, he did awesome at this, and over time, I was like, what? How is this guy making these big fat paychecks? What is he doing different, so different than I am, you know? And as I tried to figure this out, I eventually came to the conclusion that, and I'm not saying that if you're a salesperson that this is who you are, or what you have to be a salesperson, because I don't believe this. But for me, in that company, the example that I had, Brad, the way to success was to essentially be extremely morally dubious, have a lot of tricks up my sleeves, to get the person to sign. And I came to the conclusion that I was not willing to be that person. I was not willing to play that character and be a character in order to get the money. This may have something like that, where there is a roadblock in the first house. There's something you're not in alignment with. There's something inside that it feels like you're running into a brick wall of who to be, or who you are, what you are, who you identify, your character. Something about that is like saying brakes. Hold on, brakes. Do you need to change jobs? Because that's what I did eventually, was like, I can't do this. All right. I need to find something that is more in alignment with who I am, because I'm unwilling to be that kind of a person for the paycheck. I don't know if this is like that, but I feel like, when you talk about the second house of money and finances, how you earn money, how you spend money, how you save money, how you invest money, what do you cultivate for that paycheck? And why is there conflict within the first house of identity or character? Now, it could be physical too, with Mars and Saturn in the first house. It could be, of course, like a physical sickness, health, injury. You want to be careful around injury and stuff like that, accidents to your body, of course. But how that ties in with finances, I'm not sure. Maybe there is the need to have surgery, or there's the need to do something for your health that brings on another expenditure or something like that. But those are the topics: the money and the health, or the who you are. Those seem to be the topics that the eclipse is sort of circumambulating, I think. Okay, guys. Well, that is what I have for horoscopes. I appreciate you guys watching. please let me know in the comments anything that resonated or any reflections that you have. I would love to hear them. We'll be back on a regular Mantic Monday schedule next week. This week got off because of Easter, so this is a little bit late for me on Wednesday here when I'm putting this out. But hope you guys found this enjoyable. Leave some comments, and we'll be back again soon next week with another Mantic Monday episode. Until then, take care, and I'll see you then. Bye for now.